welcome to a new episode of the Low Code Approach. I'm your host, well, one of your hosts, Sean Finney, Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Power Platform team, getting the meanest looks from another one of my co-hosts. But I'm also joined by
Well, through numerous potential disasters, Sean, I managed to be available here today with you. My name is Ken Aguilard. I am joined by, I believe, Jocelyn today because Wendy's still, you know, searching for bacon answers, I believe.
she loves that. She loves the bacon topic. Let's bring it up as much as possible. Yes.
It is I, Jocelyn Pinchel, Senior Product Manager of Power Platform and Copilot Security. So we have managed to have 3 management episodes recently, and we are now managing to have a 4th because, Sean, in marketing, we really do manage to remarket our products a lot. So with us for our Manage Availability episode, we have Moktik and Shivani. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Very good. Thank you
Glad
for
to-
having us.
Of course, we're so happy to have you guys. Let's start with Moktik and then we'll pass it to Shivani. Can you explain to us what do you do here at Microsoft?
Yeah, so thanks, Jocelyn. I am Moktik Gandhi. I am a VP of Engineering for the Foundations team. Our team is responsible for providing the platform that is used for supporting the Dynamics and Power Platform workloads. Like we do things like the infrastructure management, or when it comes to engineering systems, engineering productivity investments within our team, or within the Dynamics and Power Platform or organization or environment lifecycle, then many of the managed offerings as well as licensing.
Awesome. How about you, Shivani?
Hey, I am the product lead for Foundations Infra team for Power Platform and Dynamic 365. Thank you for having us.
Of course. So let's get into it. There are so many different flavors of trust. Typically, when I'm yapping about trust, we're talking about security. But honestly, there's a lot of other ways that our customers need to trust us. So can you tell me, Shivani, from your perspective, what does trust mean to you? And is there an element of other things like resiliency or like availability that comes to mind there?
Absolutely. So when I think of trust, one of the things that really resonates with me is high reliability and resiliency, like you said. Thank you for the words. And so we want to make sure that we are just keeping the business up and running, and business continuity comes to mind almost instantly. Trust factor really kicks in if I'm a customer who doesn't want to take any down. And I'm really conscious that I keep my business up and running at all times.
Awesome. So I'm going to throw out a bunch of terms, and Moktik, I would like you to help me understand what I'm talking about. So really, I'm just kind of talking about marketing. Like I just say things, and then I rely on you to actually explain it for me. Let's talk about availability zones. What are they? How does that relate to what we call managed availability for Power Platform?
Yeah, sure. So availability zones is an Azure concept. So the idea behind availability zones is these are separated groups of data centers within a region that, and each of these groups of data center have independent power, cooling, and networking infrastructure. Typically, we have three or more availability zones within a region. So what the isolated power, networking, and cooling, what they help with is, let's say we have a situation where we've lost networking capacity, or we've lost like a utility company, like there's a power outage from a utility company, and our battery backups, like there is an extended power outage, so battery backups wouldn't really work. In that case, one of those zones will get impacted instead of the entire region getting impacted. And if we deploy our services on top of availability zones and make them zone resilient, then what happens is the workload continues to operate from the other zones and the customer experience is not impacted. Like the service continues to work and the customer can use the product.
So I think what I'd love to know is like if we were going to break down managed availability, like availability zones is one aspect of that. Shivani, what else is there for managed availability?
So when I think of managed availability, a few things come to mind. One, continuous agility with BCDR, and being able to actually have full control on my BCDR reliability and resilience, and being able to fail over, fail back whenever I feel that I am in a disaster scenario, or even for compliance needs. And so building on what Moktik was saying, building on the Azure concept of availability zones, we have a lot of very interesting engineering principles that we really double down on and focus on a lot of very cool concepts, like one of them being the island.
So BCDR, for those who may be wondering, is business continuity and data recovery, or disaster recovery, excuse me. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation right here. I am a medium, large, small, whatever size enterprise here.
You
And
are a large enterprise.
I am a large enterprise. Thank you very much, Jocelyn, for those of you who have never seen me. Yes. That said, I have been instructed or have been encouraged to have disaster recovery drills. How can I do that in the product now? Or can I do that in the product now? Can I fail over to different zones? Can I simulate a disaster, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, this is a capability that we just GA released recently. It was in public preview, and we just announced GA for the with this. In the past, we used to not offer this as a capability. We would manage the service and make sure we keep the service up and running. But as the service has grown, there's a clear need for us to provide control to customers. So the way we've done now build the service, it's as part of the managed availability of portfolio is there is the availability zones that we talked about. Our service is made zone resilient. So if we have a data center level impact or a zone level impact, then we are able to just seamlessly fail over and the customers are not impacted. But for customers who really want that added level beyond protection across data centers and within a region, they can enable this self-service DR capability. And if they enable it for the environment, then they have the option to be able to fail over their environment to the paired region and continue to run the service in that region. And they can use this both for doing drills as well as in a real outage situation where the customer wants to quickly restore, they're able to make the decision and fail over.
So, Shivani, I'm going to ask, because I've heard customers ask us this, is the service sort of self-healing, and how long does it actually take for a failover to occur? Is it
I am so glad you asked. I was like itching to interrupt and speak up in the middle. The feature that Moktik just mentioned, self-service disaster recovery, it went GA as of April 30th, but it had been in preview for last 3 months before that. And we had almost 800 customers, enterprise customers, failover, failout, and disaster recovery drills. And the average time that we've observed from those customers, real-time data, was around 1 minute 17 seconds of failover time. Star, if I can say that. We are very conscious of not putting that as our RPO RTO. Hey, Sila, if you're watching me, I want to make sure that we have all the right numbers on our public documentation. So you will see bigger numbers on our RTO RPO published on our websites. But hey, the customer experience of over 800 customers who've tried it, fail over, fail back, 1 minute 17 seconds on an average. And you can take my word for it.
I mean, for me, that's awesome. I remember being a customer and having to do the disaster recovery drills, and they took days and weeks and not minutes. So that sounds excellent to
And
me.
also, it's just amazing. Like the user experience is just so simple. Something like BCDR could not have been more simple. So when you have an environment, you right click and go to self-service disaster recovery. There is nothing for you to do. It's a clean white page, literally. There's no configuration, no tools to set, no authentication, no authorization. There's nothing for you to do because we've taken care of everything for a change. And so you literally have a drop down to say failover or do a disaster recovery drill. And that's it. And things just happen seamlessly. And I'm very proud to say that the quality of this feature has been so high. And I don't want to jinx it, but literally no issues at all have been reported from our customers. So very, very proud of this very, very effective feature that we're giving in the hands of our customers to actually go and test out their BCDR compliance and planning for a change instead of just the theoretical stuff that people have done for decades.
As you're saying, Shivani, there's so much richness built right into the platform, right? Like nothing has to be done by our customer in order to really appreciate and get the benefit and the value from all of this, right? So, Moktik, I can see a lot of our architectural go-to slides in my head, right? And there's the slide with the rectangles and it's blue and it's yellow and it has all the little people in it. You know which one I'm talking
Yes.
about. Now that we understand what is an availability zone, can you tell me about islands and how islands help to reduce with single points of
Yeah. So before I walk into islands, because we don't have the image in front of us, so I'm just going to do a imaginary visual of this. We have like, let's go look at our, like, step back and look at our architecture. So what we do is our topology is divided into three planes. We've got control plane, management plane, and the data or runtime plane. We're going to focus only on the data and runtime plane because that is what is used to power the end user mainline scenarios. Like, think of it as where the data was run, the core data was product run, Power Apps, Power Automate, Copilot Studio. All those are mainline scenarios that those run in the data or the runtime plane. Today, we have this plane, the topologies deployed to each geography. And that is the traditional model. They take a service, deploy it to every geography, and then the customers in that geography are supported by the instance deployed in the geography. We go one step further. Instead of one instance in a geography, we deploy multiple instances of a service, and these are independent instances of the service. And these instances is what we call islands. And the customer environments are provisioned on one of these islands within the geography. So the reason we do this is to reduce our fault domain. So let's take an example. Like, if I deployed one instance of the service globally, you would have the world as the fault domain. There'll be a single fault domain. If anything were to happen to the service, all customers would be impacted. If we do a geo level deployment, then the geo becomes a fault domain. With islands, what we do is it's much smaller. So if something unfortunate were to happen, we've got a lot of controls to not for things to not happen. But if something unfortunate were to happen, because hardware failures happen, there could be bugs that could affect us. There could be unexpected loads that could have come in. In all of these cases, if our defenses do not work and the system is impacted, then instead of the entire geo getting impacted, we impact a much smaller percentage of customers within that geography, and we are able to recover them much faster. It's a much smaller instance.
I love that. That makes me feel very safe. One follow up to this. How do these islands ensure that not only we have no gaps in availability and no gaps in performance, but also no gaps in monitoring?
Yeah, so that goes to the next set of principles. So islands is just one part of the set of principles that we have. The other things we do are things like no single points of failure, making sure we are deploying safely, like we call them the STP practices, like we deploy any change, whether it's code or config, we do it slowly. And the third one is monitoring, making sure that we have the right monitoring in place so that if an issue were to happen, we are able to detect it quickly. And we often have our monitoring tied to automation to mitigate that issue programmatically. So that's how we make sure when anything happens, we detect it and fix it. And within these islands itself, like we talked about availability zones, well, those availability zones and self-service DR are within the islands itself. So we have defenses within the islands to make sure that the island itself is not impacted when there's a data center outage or power outage or networking outage.
Very cool. So there's multiple layers of a nice weighted blanket, right? That makes Jocelyn feel safe in this process. I love it. I think that's great. So
Well,
without
I
naming
color and write in my
names,
journal. I have availability zones.
that's true. Yeah, well, that's, yeah, those are your pages, or your, that's what you refer to as pages or availability. So it's, hey, anyway, Moktek, let's talk about, without naming names, customer examples, like real world examples where you've seen managed availability zones, islands, the self-serve disaster recovery features like come up and help customers, and what you've seen and what those experiences are. I know Shivani said no complaints or anything like that, but it does us a great service to actually talk about real world examples to show that we're not just talking the talk, but we do walk the walk when it comes to this.
Yeah, I actually have several examples. I'm probably not going to go through each one of them, but we can go through a few of them. So first, let's talk about availability zones. It has been something uh, that has been super beneficial for customers and for the service over the last couple of years. So we've had a few data center level outages, and I'll give an example. That was a couple of years ago where we had a bad snowstorm. Snow enters the data center in central US. Well, things happen, right? Like there's a snowstorm. Snow enters the data center. snow plus data center machinery, we know what can happen. So we've got one of the data centers impacted. So the thing was that data center is part of a zone. The region had multiple zones, and we had enabled zone redundancy for customers in that region. Those customers did not see impact, and they may have seen a performance blip prior to that, like prior to the work we had done for enabling onboarding to availability zones and making our services zone redundant. We regularly had situations where a customer would get impacted in such a situation, but during this incident, the service automatically failed over to the other zones. The customers may have seen a performance degradation for a few seconds as we fail over to another system, but the system just operated. We got zero complaints during that particular incident, which was a significant shift from what we had in the past. We similarly had an outage in UAE, which we didn't even realize there was an outage going on for several weeks after the outage because the service was just fine, zero impact for the customers. And that's just on availability zones. If you look at the other principles that I talked about, like the monitoring gap, we had like monitoring, like addressing the monitoring. We have done an example there was we have a service, the gateway service, which is used for all traffic ingress. So calls come in, they need to be routed to the hundreds of services running on the infrastructure. That service is super critical. If something happens, all the services behind it get impacted. So we had an issue which had a dependency on the ARM component at that time in Azure, and there was an outage going on in ARM. Unfortunately, Gateway had a hard dependency on ARM, which was unexpected. It was a regression that was checked in a while ago, and we didn't realize there was an unintentional regression there that had a harder dependency on ARM. And Gateway entered a crash loop. Not a great thing. That's terrible for every service. Now, good thing is it was within an island, so impact was limited to one island. But what was better was we had monitoring sitting on top of it. We detected the issue within minutes, single-digit minutes, like a couple minutes. We detected the issue. The DRI engaged, was able to turn off because we have feature controls that we are able to turn off functionality. We were able to quickly turn off functionality and restore the service and all the services behind Gateway within minutes after the incident, which has minimal impact for the customers. And there are more examples I can walk through, but these are a couple of examples to walk through how availability zones, there is no single points of failure, monitoring, and islands, how do they help us prevent impact for customers? But customers don't have to do anything. The system just takes care of itself.
Moptic, thank you. One, I was kind of geeking out here on my own, finding this all very, very fascinating. But before I start diving deeper into all of this technical, Shivani, what are maybe some common patterns and practices that you see customers using this feature for now? I don't like to call them best practices, but what do you see
Good
that's
enough practice.
good enough? Yes. What's good enough practices? Thanks, Jocelyn.
So right now, if I'm thinking of self-serve disaster recovery, the most popular use case that we are starting to see is the ability to actually do a disaster recovery drill. So you are running an environment, and just building on the scenario that Moptik just shared, you are running a production environment in a region which has typically 2 or maybe 3 zones enabled. So every IO coming in on the customer's production environment is simultaneously being synchronized to 2 other zones. And so if a lightning strike happened or some local disaster happened in one of the data centers, you don't come to know. UAE example, something else went down, you don't come to know. But now think of the scenarios where geopolitical things happened, war broke, or
Yeah.
now that we are there's no global warming. But hey, Katrina happened and it's so huge that the entire region is affected. And in that case, yes, I can sit there waiting and hoping that Microsoft and Azure do the right thing and fail me over. But I want to be in control because, hey, I'm the CISO or I'm the admin who's responsible to make sure that my business is up and running, that I literally minimize the downtime. And in that case, I can actually make sure that I fail over. But the most popular scenario is when nothing is happening. Like instead of a theoretical plan, I can not just simulate, but actually fail over my environment to a remote region and see it happen. And then realize that, okay, here is what everything that was in my Power Platform environment worked fine, worked seamlessly. And then I can start taking care of the things which are second tier or which are like the added environment, the added ecosystem, and really bolster my BCDR plan for the rainy day, basically. And that's one
Got
of the very popular scenarios. Like Disaster doesn't strike every day, but hey, prep, we need to, like, the problem is that one time you can't fail over is when the disaster would strike. So you want to really make sure that your plan works. And this really gives you the ability of making sure that your disaster recovery actually works. So no simulations, actual failover.
So, a question about that. Is there any type of reporting or dashboard or something that a customer can actually have visibility to see, okay, I am able to fail over to this particular zone? Do we have something like that for them?
So yes, so when you select that, hey, I want to fail over, they're almost instantly told that, hey, there is a lag between your primary and secondary. And so say they are, because that's just physics, so they'll be informed saying, hey, there's a 40-second lag. Do you accept it and fail over? That would be data loss in that case. And so you accept it, like, absolutely, I'm in a disaster scenario. I need to be up and running right now. So they push the button. I'm going to go with the average that the customers are seeing. 1 minute, 17 seconds later, I have failed over. Everything continues to just run. And in that case, I can go into the history and actually track all the information of um, when did I request failover, when did it happen, and if I'm requesting failback, I can actually see that in my history as well,
Okay,
right
so I
there in the
can
feedback.
I can schedule it, but it sounds like you're telling me that I can also see in the zone that I'm failing over to the capacity that's available to see how this would affect my
I don't need
performance.
to worry about any of that
Okay,
taken care of. You don't need to worry about which zone. You don't need to worry about whether you have capacity over there or not. We take full responsibility of that. So you don't need to do any checks and any configurations and any tooling and any figuring out anything when you're already in the middle of a disaster. You just need to push the button.
awesome. That sounds like a song. Push the button.
Related question, Shivani. In the words of Captain Uncle Zohar, we always talk about crown jewels, right? And all of your sessions that you speak in about managed operations and managed availability always alludes to mission critical. I'm a customer, I'm a newbie admin, and I'm trying to set all of this up. Or actually, I'm a newbie. What is our target audience here? A head of operations or something?
Head of
What is your head of
operations.
operation? Okay, I'm a newbie head of operations. Clearly, I am lost in the admin sauce. How do I identify, like, what are my crown jewels? What is considered most mission critical to be assigning all of these fantastic best practices to?
I would actually say that we go beyond mission critical.
Ooh,
Like,
period. Tell me.
the service is right there for everything. So why don't I want this to apply to all my production environments? It doesn't necessarily just it doesn't have to be just for mission critical. So hey, I have my business and I may not be running a nuclear facility, or I may not be on the line for a medical, someone's life may not be on the line, or I may not be a bottler plant where the quality of water matters every second of the day. Hey, my business is still important to me. And if things go down, I don't want to lose money. And so in that case, I just want to make sure that, hey, I have global customers. And so me being down means I'm losing some business. And sure, it's not like my business is at a peak all through 24 hours. But I would want my business to be available. If I'm especially 24/7, in general, I just want a business continuity because I am a global organization. And so it applies to all those scenarios. And also just peace of mind, which, like, traditionally we always like to have backups. And we definitely have had secondary copies for the longest time. And now we're giving self-service control over that, saying, hey, because you didn't know anything about it. And so not knowing is a very big deal for feeling confident and feeling safe. And so that's where trust comes in. We want to make sure that you can trust us. And so we are giving you the control. So you have the button to push and control your business continuity and disaster recovery story here. Did I answer your question, or did I just take you
I
for a
think you went above and beyond because I was
Yeah, I was gonna
like,
say you
tell me
more than
what
answered it.
I need to do to be considered mission critical. And you're like, don't even worry about that. We could do everything. So I feel content. I feel safer. Sean, do you feel safer?
All the time. So two things. One, Shivani, it sounds like this is probably the shortest Microsoft Learn doc ever, where it's just like, don't worry, push button, and like I guess that's it for what we actually document on there. But I'm sure there's a lot more, which leads me to my question. I contractually have to say this: agents and Copilot. If I am looking at deploying Microsoft Copilot and agents in my organization, and I'm getting started with this, and I'm like, oh, Microsoft Copilot Studio and Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, like all these great features over here, right? And if I'm going to build agents with Copilot Studio, what's the thing that I need to know to get started when it comes to availability? Where can I go? Where can I learn more? What should I be doing to make sure that, head of operations all the way down to my IT staff, everybody understands their roles, their responsibilities, and how they can become more enabled to utilize or just push a button, right? Like how can they be more prepared?
Absolutely. So today, when I'm thinking of agents, the two types of agents, the custom agents and declarative agents. And almost any agent um, that is created on MCS, the default way, uh, it gets stored on Dataverse, underlying platform that supports Power Platform and Dynamic 365. And all the goodness that Moktek just emphasized, the islands, the concept of using availability zones, the richness of we literally synchronizing your data over multiple zones and making sure that you literally have zero RPO if one of the data centers goes down. All that goodness, the STP, the safe deployment practices, all that very specifically applies to this platform. Anything that you are doing with your agents, which you are doing outside of this realm, obviously it's not covered, but anywhere your agents are actually being stored on Dataverse, all your conversations that are being stored on Dataverse totally benefit from this high availability.
This is what we often say in our team. Like the platform, the infrastructure, the architecture is resource agnostic, right? Sean's gonna obligatorily ask, what about agents? But for
Have to.
foundations, it is resource agnostic. We don't care if you're an app, if you're a flow, if you're an agent. It is the platform.
So I know I said I was going to close out here, but like Shivani, Moktik, actually we'll start with Shivani, we'll go to Moktik. What's next? Like we've got all this greatness, but I'm marketing. I always want more. I want more things to talk about. What's next? What's coming down the pipe?
So there's a very good question from Ken earlier saying, hey, how am I being told? What are the dashboards? And I think we can do a lot more over there. So a lot more, and we look forward to all the feedback we can get in this space. So meaningful data and actually actionable data and doing stuff agentically about it. So as much as yes, we want self-service and we want control over it. Once we've earned your trust that yes, and you can push the button and you are right there and you always have that option, then there is a little bit of liability there. Like, is my person there at the right time in the right room to push that button? What if they couldn't make it? What if they tripped? Or whatever happened and they didn't make it at the right time, that every minute they are delayed is a minute of extra data loss in that case. And in that case, like we humans with all our experience say this right person, the right admin sitting there pushing the button could take into account 5 different factors to make the right call. Is this the right moment? Should I push the button and fail over? Right? Or having something agentic which can literally take into account myriads of factors and earn the trust, going back to that trust thing, right? Earn the trust saying, here are all the reasons why I think we should push the button.
Awesome. Well, that is a ton to just learn, and it's weird, right? There's so much behind it, but really the user experience is pretty minimal if you're just pushing a button. But we want to provide more information on this. Speaking of that, we'll have a bunch of links in the show notes for everybody to learn more. Blog post went out recently announcing managed availability and all the great features, and we'll link that for everybody for more
And we have
education.
demos.
And we
We
have
have
oh yeah,
demos of
we've
how
got demos.
easy it is to push the button.
Long 30 or 40-minute videos is what Jocelyn is saying. Thank you so much, Shivani and Moktik. Really appreciate having both of you on the episode to talk about managed availability, and we'll have you back on in the future to talk about all the new greatness that will be coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.